All right, back with Modern Man. Here we are. Got the gang together, and then got a special guest today with Dominic. Dom, thanks for being with us, dude.
Appreciate it, man.
Noah's gonna really MC our time, so you'll be the host if you're joining us again, Modern Man. Just talking about what it means to be a man in the modern world.
I love it. So I'm super pumped to bring on truly a friend. He's a homie. So I'm super excited for this. Dom is one. He does a million things, but I'll kind of throw it to you, Dom. But you're the founder of The Running Effect. You're doing a lot of different things within that. So I kind of want to just throw it to you to intro yourself, who you are, what you're up to, and what you're excited about.
Oh, boy.
The Dominic Schlueter.
Well, I appreciate you guys are like the only group that would get my last name right, because normally if I do like podcasts or speaking engagements, no one can get it right. So you guys are tenured. Yeah.
Is that what you get?
Yeah. The worst was like sophomore year high school photos. The photographer was like, "How do you spell your name?" And so you get it in the mail like 3 weeks later, and he spelled it with it was Schlever. It was like Schleeder.
No.
That's tough. Like Norwegian.
What do I do? Who am I? Dominic Schlueter, as you said, founder, CEO of The Running Effect. By the way, do you guys think I've heard this argument? It's like founder's way more prestigious than saying CEO. Like
I think it is.
Yeah.
I like it, Ben. It's more entrepreneurial. Like it doesn't feel as like systematic.
I say both, but I think a lot of like Colin, my brother-in-law, is like anyone can call themselves like a CEO. But like founder's a cool title. So basically, it's a sports media company. So podcast, social media, event marketing with a ton of different aspects underneath that, and then as of late, trying to utilize the influence I've had with it and work with other companies or get advisory positions or make an impact, make a dent on the world. So
yeah, you're doing it. So I think I also want to. You wouldn't do this, so I'm just going to do it for you. I'm going to ask you this question so that you have to answer it. But you also have done crazy things in the podcast world. So tell us a little bit about like when it started and some of the stats that came out like the first couple of years that you started.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, no one listened. Like you guys are podcasters now, so you'll appreciate this, but
because no one listens to us.
No, not at all. Because it's you guys have cameras and nice mics and everything, and I could have not been further from the opposite. So basically, grew up the sport of running, super passionate about it. Got to the point where I was good, but I wasn't great. I don't know if they have CYO in Columbus, but
they do.
Yeah, Toledo, we had CYO. Top 3 get medals for cross country. 6th grade year, I got 4th. That really lit a fire underneath my stomach. So I started going to the library, checked out books, figured out like, hey, how do I get good at the sport? My parents were like super strict with devices and stuff, like emails, whatever. So I convinced my mom. My way to get an email was I was like, Mom, like I want to email these people. Can I get an email? So convinced her to let me get an email. Started emailing coaches, athletes, top people in the sport. And from that information became way better as a runner. Won the diocesan championship my 8th grade year. Pinnacle achievement. I thought
to this point, I was like,
I'm going to the Olympics. Diocesan champion, CYO. And it was really that point where I first had the thought like, oh, what would it look like to publicize this info that I'm privately getting? Most kids probably aren't emailing these people or like going to the library and reading these memoirs or whatever it might be. So that was the impetus for the podcast. Took me about 1.5 years to act on it. Going back to my comment a minute ago, how bad it was. So it literally, the first episodes, I recorded on Zoom. It was only on YouTube, but it wasn't video. It was just like a picture of the guest. So it was like an hour podcast, but it was just like, wasn't video. It was just a picture of the guest to be able to put it on YouTube. Wasn't on Spotify, wasn't on Apple Podcasts. And so it's hilarious looking back because it was like, it could not, people are like, have you changed anything from day one to day now? And I'm like, absolutely. Like you couldn't find it anywhere. In terms of numbers or stuff, I think what I'm most proud of is, and I don't know how they calculate this at all because there's no way more people are listening to me than like Stephen A. Smith or whatever. But Spotify has like categories. So like health and wellness, business, politics, sports, whatever it might be. So for the sports category, I've gotten as high as 15th on their charts for top sports podcasts in the US. I was above Stephen A. Smith. And that's why I'm like, I don't know.
Shout out Stephen A. Smith. At him.
He's definitely listening.
Was it the Stephen A. show or was it the
Stephen
Straight Shooter?
Yeah. No,
You're
Stephen
both.
A.
You're beating it all.
It was First Take because they do a First Take version on Spotify.
Yeah, sweet. No, that's amazing.
So that, and then I think the other one is, so they only do top 50. So I could be 52nd right now and not know. But I've been on the charts back-to-back years, going for 3 years in a row. A little three-peat, a little Michael Jordan that LeBron could never have.
Yeah, the LeBron Michael Jordan conversation.
Exactly.
Come to the table.
We'll get there.
But that was meaningful because I think anyone can do something once. there was this great quote. I forget what song it's from, but I think it's from a song. It was like, I thought it was luck till I did it again. And I really like that because, again, I'm like, there's no way I'm getting more plays than Stephen A. Smith, First Take. And they take a ton of things into their algorithm of what makes the charts. But the first time I got on, I was like, something's got to be wrong. Like, I was a senior in high school. I was like, something's got to be wrong. And so to do it back-to-back years, and I didn't do it in 2024. So last year hit, and I was like, it was probably a spoof. Like, it was probably luck. And so I think last year I got up to 33rd, and I was like, okay, we're rolling. Like, this is a good feeling.
I should keep doing this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because there's a day, like, I don't know what the equivalent would be, but like, if you guys got a speaking gig or something, like a massive speaking gig, you might just think like, oh, I got put the right person on their table. Like, that's how I got it. It was luck. But if like the second person reaches out, it's like, oh, I'm legit. You know?
I'm doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can iterate over time.
Or like when an episode goes massive for you guys, it's like you might feel like, oh, just hit the algorithm well. But the second time almost feels more meaningful than the first because you're like, oh, this is confirmation.
Yeah, proof
that I'm onto
of
something.
concept instead of like serendipity. How did you scale from the podcast? Because the running effect, it started effectively as a podcast.
Yeah.
And then it's scaled now into the different things that you're doing. So did you just do podcasts for like 5 to 10 years? Like what was the trajectory?
I mean, I think every podcast has some sort of social media presence. So I think as I was growing the podcast, I was growing the social media presence.
Makes sense.
With that came certain like social media brand deals or whatever. And then my senior year of high school, really the deal that allowed me to skip high school and go to college, it was a deal with Hoka, and it was a 10-part, 10-week series leading into their big, it's called the Hoka Festival Miles. It's a race in St. Louis, Sam's neck of the woods, a little more south. St. Louis sucks. I was way cooler. But I was doing this series with them. It was doing really well, getting a lot of traction. And they were like, well, you're already doing this podcast series for us. You should just like come out to this event. So went out to the event. The content I did there went super, super well. Some of it was like super simple looking back on it. Like I'll act like you're like a 4-minute miler. I'd like pull out my phone 30 minutes before the race. Look at me, I'm not a
4-minute miler.
And I'd be like, how do you feel before the race? And post that on social media in real time. And people were like tracking, did well. And then they started to want me to come out to their events more. They flew me out to the US Track and Field Championships the next month. Brooks flew me out to their high school meet the next month. And so that really kind of started like the event marketing wing, and that I've really, really built out. I've tried to find like my joke, but it is serious. The running world has like the best photographers. They have the worst videographers. So I try to pull like NFL, like NCAA level talent and bring them to running, teach them how to shoot running. Because the level of expectation of like getting Fernando Mendoza jumping into the end zone versus like your average track meet, it's just like the boss at the NCAA level is going to be hard on you.
Yeah.
And so if I can train those guys how to understand running, they make some of the coolest stuff ever. And because the brands within running aren't used to it, they're like, what did I just see? Like, what did I just experience? So that's kind of the event marketing wing of it. We also have a newsletter. My first ever podcast guest, super bright guy. He's the only guy I know who was an athlete. So he's a 7-time All-American at Stanford. Then went on to coach. So now he's a coach at Nike's like premier track club. But then thirdly, he's got like the science degree. So he's a degree in sports physiology from Stanford. He's like the only guy I know who's like hit all those categories, like science, coach, athlete. A lot of people hit 2, but not all 3. So first ever podcast guest, always been a mentor to me. I basically was like, Alex, I talk to you on the phone like every 2 weeks. You're a genius. Like I want to pay you to write what I want out in the world. And so we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary of the Rundown, which is like our newsletter, and always looking to expand in different ways. So
that's great, man.
That's amazing. So I think there's like a billion questions I have, but I think one of the ones that I'm curious about mainly because we are just getting kicked off with this podcast is I'll ask this question. Simply put, why do most podcasts fail? So like what are you doing? And because there's probably a couple other people. There's not a lot of people in the running podcast space, but there are some. And what has like kind of taken you above the line and made you like kind of in a way like pretty hyper successful? And what are the things that you're doing that could translate into really any other pocket of podcasting, any other category that like makes you successful, makes other people not successful?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. You guys will be impressed by the stat because you're in the winning majority of it. Because I don't know how many episodes in you guys are, but you're certainly past 3. So there's a stat that 90% of podcasts quit after episode 3. Wow. And then of the 10% that survive, I think like 99% of those podcasts quit after like 20 or 21. So literally, if you post 21 episodes, you're in the top 1% of podcasts like ever all time. Not necessarily plays, but just in terms of like how far you've made it.
You think that's instant gratification? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
it's just
that's totally what it is.
Because it's a lot of work up front, and you're not going to get a lot of reward, and you're going to have to sharpen
that's the thing. So I think people see the Joe Rogans of the world, or like if you're a high school boy and you see my podcast, and you're like, Dominic was a high school boy and started this running podcast. Therefore, if I start a running podcast, I can be Dominic. Or like they see the brand deals or the trips I get to go on or the shoes in my closet, and it's like, if you're in it for those reasons, you'll never make it. The reason most people fail is because they're in it for the wrong reason, or they don't even know why they're in it. But most of the time, if they did some deep soul searching, they would be like, I'm doing it because I think I'll get some praise and affirmation, which most humans crave. And so I think for me, why it was successful early on was just like, I didn't care who listened. I remember my dad, because he was like helping me with some of the production stuff early on.
Shout out Greg.
Shout out Greg.
Man.
He was like, create a Google, because he was gauging how serious I was. And he was like, create a Google Doc. What would you name it? What would it look like? Who would the guests be? What would success look like for you? And I remember writing what success looked like for me was if I can impact one person per episode. It was such a low barrier that even if I saw like 50 views on the YouTube podcast video, I was like, maybe one of those people, like someone enjoyed it. But I think people set such a high mark of like, I want to quit my job and do this within like 2 months, or I want to get my first brand deal, or I want to go like viral on social media. And it's like, it's so unrealistic to be successful that early on. I know you guys like listen to Chris Williamson or even Joe Rogan. Like those guys were at it for years. Like Joe
said for 5 years no one listened, and finally he was at a stand-up.
He was at a stand-up bit. I hated him.
He was at a stand-up bit where he said like, "How many of y'all listen to the podcast?" And like the whole like stadium that was in front of him said they did. And he goes, "People actually listen?" Because at that time you weren't tracking metrics and stuff. So
that's amazing.
Crazy.
Yeah, so I think. I just think it's like the ability to absolutely love what you like. If I was to advise you guys, it's like have people on or enjoy each other enough to the point where you do it if no one watched.
Yeah.
Because like Chris Williamson has this great idea and advice. He's like, for anyone listening, like get around your closest friends and act like you're recording a podcast. You never have to release it, but like act like it. Because the cool thing with you guys is I feel like we talk about very similar things on a podcast versus off a podcast, which is maybe something that you guys could lean into as a unfair advantage. But I feel like the podcast gets a certain level of depth from the people that are on it. And so if you can just enjoy the thing and do it without, like, I would have the conversations with the people I would have on, because most of it was like, I was in high school trying to be a great runner. And I was like, I know this professional athlete would only talk to me if I hid behind the podcast title. And so that's what it was. It was like, how do you train? How do you eat? How do you deal with adversity? I have this ankle injury. I read that you had an ankle injury. What'd you do to rehab it? And so it was like, to me, I was like, I'm totally hiding behind the podcast label. Whoever wants to listen, listens. But it was almost a selfish pursuit. And I wanted to help people in the process, because I was like, if I feel this, I know other people feel this as well. But in some sense, I think the podcasts that make it the furthest, they just like genuinely love what they do. And you certainly feel that with Joe Rogan. I don't know if you guys listen often, but like that dude like does not act.
He just
like
wants to have the
listening.
conversation. Yeah. Well, that's the authenticity. I think I was talking to Sam about this last time he was in town, but I think the authenticity that comes whenever you do something, and you would do it no matter how much you get paid for it, you would do it no matter how many people cared that you were doing it. It's just something that you were made for. Like conversations like this, the conversations you were having, Sam going and doing men's ministry in Iowa. It's like that there's something authentic when we do the thing we know we were made to do.
Yeah, totally. I remember a conversation I had with my mom, senior of high school, and I was like making no money off the podcast, but I loved it at that point. And I told her, I was like, Mom, if I could make, so I think I made like $200 off of like a liquid IV commission deal. And I said, Mom, if I can make $50,000 a year, because I just thought like that's the average American. Back in 2020, I don't know, that was worth a lot more. But, but at the time, to me, I was like, kids who get out of college, $50,000 salary, you could probably make a decent living. So like, Mom, if I can make $50,000 a year doing this one day, like I'll have made it. And that haunts me sometimes to this day, because like I'll do $50,000 a month probably this year. I did $50,000 months last year, not necessarily every month, but there were months where I did that, and it's like felt nothing, you know. And that sometimes haunts me, because I'm like, okay, if I go back to my like junior, senior self, and I'm like, dude, you absolutely did that. Stop chasing. But yet I have this mindset of like always more, always more. And that's the other thing I think that podcasters or people in business fail, is like they don't actually define what success looks like. And so then when they hit what they feel like is success, it's just like, well, because I did this, it's the next thing, it's the next thing, it's the next thing. And I think in American culture today, specifically with men, it's like making $1 million a year is like the end all be all. But how many, I mean, of all the millionaires I know, they did not stop when they hit $1 million a year. And we're like, honey, we made it. Like, I'm going to stop chasing. I'm going to stop pursuing. And that's why I think process-oriented goals will always beat the outcome-oriented goals of like, and that's where I have to reframe myself and be like, I love what I do. If I make money off of it, great. If I'm excellent at this, money will be a byproduct of this, but I'm not doing this because of the money. And I made that comment my senior year because I loved it, not because I thought it could make me any money. So that's a gut punch from time to time.
You said it. What do you define success as?
I'm working through that. I honestly don't know if I have the definitive answer. What I kind of came to like I'm too young to say midlife crisis, but quarter life crisis. Yeah. Like a few years ago. Cause I was like diving into spirituality, diving into like relationship with Jesus. And I was like, I kept having this like goal of like pushing running, bringing storytelling to running. And I was just like, I don't want to make it to heaven one day and God be like, you brought a ton of storytelling to the sport of running, but like, what else did you do?
Yeah.
Like he doesn't care. He doesn't care. Respectfully. Yeah. God doesn't care about running. And so it was this moment of like, okay, what am I actually doing with this platform? And what I kind of came up with in reflection and prayer was like, what is now my core motto, which is helping people turn their what ifs into reality. And what I mean by that is like that 8th grade self had the, what if I start a podcast? What if I take the information I'm being given and publicize it? And my whole life, like, let's be real, you guys would like me if I didn't have a podcast, I'd think, but like, I wouldn't even be here. I wouldn't even be here today if it wasn't for taking action on that reality. Yeah. Every room I get in is because of taking action on that reality. My whole income, the car I drive, most of the people I know, most of the friends I have came as a result from taking action on that what if. And so what success looks like to me is inspiring a generation to turn their what ifs into realities, whether it's, a 10-year-old who happens to stumble across my content or like a 75-year-old who, whatever that looks like. And it doesn't even have to be running or fitness related. I just think running is the medium, to do it. That's my speak. That's my language, my verbiage. And the reason I like that too is because running is this chapter and season of life for me, but I don't think it'll be 25 years from now. I'll still be running. I don't know if I'll have a running podcast, but I think that core motto will stick with me to the day I die. Because I'm a firm believer, like we all have dreams, goals, I think placed on our hearts by God. But and I know you guys could speak to this, like so few people actually take action on those things and they die with these dreams on their heart. And I think those are from God and it's our moral responsibility to take action.
Well, it's because we're afraid not to arrive. I think the pitfall of man is that we think that we were made to arrive. So we're either afraid to start because we don't think we'll arrive, or once we arrive where we thought we wanted to arrive, we feel like we don't have a meaning anymore because we surpassed it. But we're not made to arrive. Like life is actually about the process that you were talking about, because we're made for God. God's infinite. So once we reach him, we won't reach an end. So exactly what you were saying, $1 million a year, it's like, you're not going to be content there. You're not going to be content at this follower level or this follower level, or Sam won't be content after the Forge has this many small groups, or Noah won't be content after the podcast stuff that you guys are doing, like touches this many podcasts, or I'm not going to be content after I speak to this many people. It's like that. If that's your why, you'll either stop short, fearful that you won't make it, or you'll get there and realize it's not what you wanted anyway. And both are pitfalls. So whenever we begin seeing like, actually modern man's here because we want to turn boys into men, so future wives and bishops don't have to, like whatever your thing is, it's like, we want to have the conversations that matter. We want to rediscover what's been lost in masculinity. We want to redeem what we still have in masculinity, but isn't what it should be. And then we want to respond with our lives like that. Once you start getting there, now we're after something, because that process, it's not like tomorrow we're going to wake up and go, we're officially modern man. It's like, we're officially doing the thing. It's tomorrow we're going to go after the thing and we're going to miss, and then we're going to tighten, and then we're going to tighten, and then we're going to tighten, and we're going to hit it sometimes and not. But that excites me, because I've been really intrigued by a debate that Sam, Noah, and I have had on the podcast, probably like 4 or 5 of the first 16 episodes, like before this relaunch, which was this balance of setting the bar sufficiently low that some idiot like you could hit it, but also never lowering the bar and calling it success. So this balance between, I'm going to set a reasonable mark tomorrow, but also I know the high mark, and even though I'm never going to hit it, I refuse to ever lower it and call it success. I'm going to go after the impossible knowing that tomorrow's satisfaction's 1% better, but not losing that I want to get the most out of this. I think that's probably a fair assessment, right? This balance of like, how do I set the bar low, but also keep it high? And how do we walk in that nuance?
No, you're right on. I think something I'm just thinking on that I think is really would be helpful because I know that at least Brad and I have talked about this before. I'm sure that other people that have big aspirations have thought about this before. But Dom, if you could kind of like walk me through what the kind of balance between, so you've got these big dreams, big aspirations, and it's like there's self-promotion that has to happen, right? But there's also this dance of humility. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, if I wanted, let's say that I wanted to speak at like the Seek conference one day or at some big parish mission or this conference, and I just start calling through all the names in any name I can find or emailing as many people as I can find. And I'm just like, hey, saying like, I want to speak at your conference. Like I want to get my name out. Not really like saying I want to get my name out there, but then there's kind of like, I'm going to do the great thing kind of humbly and then let the things come to me. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Like that kind of tension. Yeah. And I think especially the audience that we serve, primarily Catholic men, I think that's a real kind of tension on men's heart of like, where is pride and humility there, you know, because I think sometimes if you promote yourself,
magnanimity
like,
too.
Yeah.
Like, how does that fit in? No, keep going.
Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the Schleeders are the wrong people to ask. I think my brother John Paul says this. He's like, we're all prideful, and that's what makes us great, but it's also our downfall.
Sure.
Yeah. And I actually think that's a key phrase. Is like pride can be what makes. I don't know of a single ultra successful person I know who's not remarkably prideful, but it almost makes sense for them to be prideful. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's sometimes the balance that I find hard to strike is like, is it prideful to say I have the best top running podcast in America? It sounds prideful, but statistically, it's probably true.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult when you are at a 1% level where it's like the statements you could make about yourself, like for all of you guys are all excellent speakers. I've heard all of you speak. And it's
Who's
like
the best one? No, I'm just
Josh,
kidding.
I don't know. I haven't heard you two speaking about it. More so Brad.
You just answered it.
I don't remember what 7th grade Dominic remembered. But like, it's like, is it prideful for you guys to say like, we're some of the best Catholic speakers in the world? If you said that to the wrong audience, you'd be like, shut. Yeah. You'd be like, holy crap, you are so prideful. Right. But like, accurately speaking, is it that insane to state? Probably not. You guys would all probably say it about each other. And so I think it's like, give yourself enough evidence so that you can make those bold statements that might seemingly be prideful, but you can back up with action.
Yeah, it's actually reality.
Like, I mean, we all watch sports. If like Anthony Edwards or name a different, Aaron Judge, like if they're speaking very highly of how good they are, and it's not going to hit headlines because people are going to be like, well, you kind of are the best player on the Timberwolves.
Let me reframe and throw it back to you real quick. I think you and I might use different words to explain the same reality. I think what you're saying is that little edge of pride might be good. What I would say is that's actually magnanimity, and magnanimity is the virtue that it's the greatness of soul. So it strives for everything that it was made for. But the reason that magnanimity and pride are subtly different is because pride, the end is me. Magnanimity, the end is impact. The end is God. The end is everything I was made for. And I think it really is that, like, at the end of the day, when you say that about the podcast, it's like, yeah, and glory to God. And I'm so grateful that I'm impacting so many lives because that's what we were all made for. And you should go do it too. Like, I'm just a normal guy who started a podcast. We're just normal guys that hit the stage sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, I think that I'll throw that back to you. I wonder what you think about that because I think because I do think that it's subtle and I think you need to know yourself, right? Like same thing with me. Like I say things.
Key. I think you have to do it's interesting. It's an interesting distinction. I do think you have to do enough though for your I don't think it's always a bad thing occasionally to do something for yourself. For instance,
agreed.
There's nothing worse than the gym goer who they're clearly going for everyone else and they're looking around and they post their photo on social media every day. To tell everyone like, hey, I worked out. Hey, look at me. I respect I don't know if you guys know Strava, the big running app. You know Strava.
Yeah.
Like I ask professional runners sometimes, like, would you train as hard if no one knew what you were doing? Like, would you do the crazy routines that you would do if no one knew what you were doing? So I was thinking society and culture today, we could benefit from a healthy sense of like, hey, like no one knows what you're doing, but you're doing it anyway to feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not married, but like I haven't experienced this in dating. Like how often, and I'm curious for you guys, how often do you do like a selfless loving task that like, you wouldn't necessarily expect your girl to think that you'd do? and like you need the recognition or praise for it. Like, honey, I folded the laundry, you know? It's
yeah,
like,
this makes sense. You're saying that it doesn't have to necessarily be altruistic, like because there are magnanimous things we can do for us. Like,
I'm just saying,
I want
I
to
think
be the
it's important.
strongest,
Yeah.
smartest, like holiest man I can be.
100%.
And there's nothing wrong in saying that. I'm going to go after that, whatever
Yeah.
my threshold is.
Well,
like,
so I think it's the balance of like, you want outside validation that you are who you say you are about yourself. But I also think it's more important. Like, we have almost given up our opinion of ourselves and given it to the world. And I think that that's almost the problem. It's like, how do you, sit with yourself, go on a silent retreat, or just sit in your room for 60 minutes without your phone and ask yourself, like, how do I feel about me? Am I proud of how I feel in my body? Do I feel fit? Do I feel healthy? How do I feel about my mind, my mindset? How do I feel like I'm approaching life? Like, if one of the best like reframes I think in all of life is like, if someone like a ghost followed you for a week, would they say you're serious about your goals? And I think that's a really powerful thing. I think we've almost lost our identity of being self-critical. This is a really niche message, by the way, because I think if someone's already ultra critical, like this could send them over the edge. So I think you need to know who you're talking to. But at least for men who can take a lot of pounding, I think it's important to be like, are you self-critical of yourself to the extent that you should be?
Well, and do you live in reality? I like that. That's what you're saying too, is like, where am I at? Like, am I actually in the shape I want to be in? Yes or no? And like, not being afraid of that answer, because like, well, you guys know me, like in the last, like, probably like 3 years, like some autoimmune things with me, I've felt off and then I've felt embarrassed to get back at it. And now as I get back in, it's just answering that question. No. Okay, and what now? Like, not leaving questions rhetorical. Like, I think that suffocates us. The moment I ask, am I in the shape that I want to be? And I'm like, oh, let's not answer it. It's like, no, answer it. No, I'm not. Okay, what are we going to do? Okay,
well,
what
let me
now?
guess, it's because you're uncomfortable with the current present day answer.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And the action it requires. Because once you answer it, now there's no hiding from it. So now it's, I either accept that that's how it's going to be, or I do something to change it.
Yeah, I'm smiling because I said this to someone yesterday. I was like, I've never met a fat person who thinks they eat poorly. I've never heard someone who is obese say I have a bad diet. Genuinely. I was like, we live in a culture where everyone thinks they have the perfect workout routine, the perfect diet, that they're doing things the right way. And it's just, I laugh because, again, we live in a culture. And I think that the biggest thing that I say and preach to people is like, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? I think, especially as a man, you should always be striving, and you should be around men who make you feel like you need to strive. I don't think that's a bad thing. Maybe that's a hot take, but I think the problem is too many people surround themselves with people that make them feel good about themselves, and surround them with people who like, we've lost a sense of like, hey, you can do more and you can be more type friends, because we're scared of everyone's feelings these days. And I see so few men in like society, that I meet on the street, at least like in my circle, it's different, but I meet on the street. If I ask about their circle or their friends, where like, I know if I'd be bored if I was at dinner. No one's challenging each other. No one's asking real substantive, conversation, topics, questions, answers. It's all, as I would say, like commentating about life rather than like going a level deeper. Because it's really easy to just be like, like, something my girlfriend and I love to do at dinner is like, we'll like overhear people, or like people watch, and it's just hilarious what you hear the average, person talk about. It's just like, holy crap. Like, we've lost even the most basic sense of like conversation and identity and challenging each other. And I think we've like offset growth as a negative thing. Because again, we're scared at our core, bringing spirituality into it, of like engaging with our identity. Because I think when you do that, there are certain moral responsibilities about your life. My favorite thing to say to non-denominational friends is, I'm like, you should be grateful for what you don't know. And I say in a joking way, because I say, when you know the fullness of truth, you'll be held to that standard. And so enjoy not having to go to church on Sunday, because some days it's a pain in the ass. Like, we were talking a trip this weekend. Love the Lord. There's no way after a long trip, I land at 8:15, I'm going to want to go to mass at 9. You want to go to
mass?
Yeah, there's just no way. But like, again, to someone who's not a non, it's just like a day they can't go to church. And that's just like a small aspect. And so I know I'm ranting here, but like, I think, when you know the fullness of truth, or when you're fully in touch with your identity, the standard that you're held to is just completely different, rather than just like, let me completely phase out of everything in my life and not hold myself to anything. And then just like, surround myself with people who make me feel good about this way of living or thinking.
Well, and it can be burning. I think when you take that on, it can be burdensome. And I think I've had different seasons in my life where what I found is that there are different seasons in my life where I'm like, frick, I'm 20 pounds overweight. Frick, I'm not grinding on the project that I know I need to grind on, and because I just don't want to. I'm not making the bed in the morning after my wife leaves when she really loves when I do that. I'm not. You come into reality with all these things, and you're like, oh, this can be burdensome. But then I have found, like, I've really kind of been trying to step up my game since Easter, and I have found just that if I take on the burden of doing those things methodically every day, it becomes the biggest blessing to me. And that's kind of the crazy
That's like
thing.
discipline equals freedom.
Yeah,
One of the best quotes ever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel way more sober than I have in years. I feel way more just like alert, alive. I feel present. And I'm like, this is and I just feel way better than the disappearing act that I was playing before, where I was like, okay, I know I need to do this, but like,
You can't hide from you.
I love NBA playoffs, and that's not a bad thing. So I'm going to sit here until X amount of whatever.
But
time
that's where the quote that we maybe talked about before, which is like, choose your suffering. Yeah. Like you choose your suffering one way. You either choose to like get in shape now and the suffering of going to the gym and pushing yourself hard, or you choose the suffering of being obese and being at risk for all these cancers and not being present, for your grandkids one day because you're like in hospice 24/7 because you didn't take control of your body, or the suffering of like financial stress and bills and all of that, or the suffering of like really being locked in and focused on your craft or career and like making it a passion. And you could extrapolate that to nearly anything. I think it's what suffering are you willing to sign up for, and what do you actually want? And then again, like, does your life and does your priorities match up with this? And without sharing too much, because it was like, confidentiality rules around the meeting. But I'm on an advisory board for a venture capital firm, and we do these monthly meetings, and they brought in this guy. His name's Shep Moyle. I highly recommend looking him up. He teaches a lot at Duke, I think, in a bunch of different places, probably like multimillionaire for all I know, like super smart guy, coaches a bunch of people. And specific people were saying, we had to like rank our priorities, what was most important. And then we had to like rank what those actually were at. And she's like, none of your guys' lives like match up with these priorities. For me, if I say family, but it's like a 4 on my list and work's like a, XYZ, I can say work's my priority, or I can say family's my priority, but it's not actually.
Yeah. Do your actions reflect it?
Yeah, 100%. And I think so many people, including myself, hear that and are like, oh, that makes sense. That's a good line. But it's like, do we actually accept it? There's a difference between, like we were talking about this with the health thing, there's a difference between logically being like, that makes sense, and then that versus like, okay, that makes sense, but I'm going to now put it into action. Okay, now I'm going to actually change my calendar this next week. Because, I know you guys listen to a ton of podcasts like myself, and it's like genuinely, and maybe this is just a me thing, man, I've taken such little action after listening to some of the most inspirational podcasts ever. I'm like, great business tip, great personal tip, great. I never do anything about it. Yeah. And so it's so hard to motivate people to actually change.
Well, I think so much of it is we live in a age where information is so like readily accessible, and you can be inspired all day long. And this is kind of the thing we'll go rounds on with that, is like inspired or action. I'll take action every day of the week. Like if I don't need to know what's the next inspirational thing about my priorities, because I know my priorities, me personally, right? And this is like probably me being the person at the table, and probably, maybe some of the guys that are listening can understand this a little bit, but it's like, I'll listen to some guys where it's like, you're not married, you don't have kids, and like, you don't really work a normal job. I can't relate to anything in your life, And so it's like, how about you take my life on for a week?
Some of those people become the experts though. Like some big author, New York Times bestseller. I'll tell him off air because I don't want to expose him.
Sure.
It's just in the case he's listening. But he was like, Tim Ferriss. He's like, who is Tim Ferriss to give relationship advice? He's like, that guy's never been in a steady relationship in his life. Or he's like Simon Sinek, like the same thing. He's like, some of the experts in these fields have never actually done the thing that they're quote unquote experts on.
Yeah.
And to your point, it's like, you're objectively way more qualified to speak on marriage and marriage advice than half the people who sell books about marriage who are like twice divorced.
Yeah, for sure. And so then it's like these people prescribe, this is what you should do. So this is why I have a big issue with like the dude who's created School. What's his name? I
I think his name's Mike School, isn't it?
No.
Oh,
not
he's
School.
talking
Alex
Alex
Hormozy.
Hormozy.
Oh, yeah. He
'cause-
partnered with the guy.
Sure, yeah, okay, that guy
For sure.
So because I'm like, you're okay, like I don't even think you're married. You're just like kind of casually in a relationship. You have no
married.
children. Is he married? Cool.
Yeah,
That's great.
sorry.
Well, come.
I really
come
like
to me,
him.
dude.
We talk about this a lot,
I don't
though.
know
Yeah,
enough about him
Yeah.
other than this that I'm like I'm guessing you don't have children. You don't post anything about your children. You don't talk about your children. But then you talk about how this is like, if you can just maximize every single thing in your life, then you can pay people to do your laundry. Then you can pay people to do your dishes. And it's like, okay, I think for the most part, I'm maximizing most things in my life. And I'm trying to get after, like, I've got a wife, 3 kids, like live in a nice house. Like, I don't think that there's much more I could do with my life with the margins that I have unless my priorities shift, right? So every single person has the exact same amount of time in a week. It's what you do with that time, right? So this is where we get into that idea of trade-offs. So it's like, okay, if you're telling me the number one priority in my life should be to make money, so then I can maximize all these other things, because if I pay for people to do these things, then that's great. But for me, it's like, I need to just be able to be, like, for right now, it is, I need to be faithful to my wife. I need to be a faithful present father. I want to be healthy and work out. And I need to do my job faithfully. Like, and then I have this Substack and this podcast, and that's like about it. Like, that's all the margins I have in my life. And then my Whoop tells me I sleep about 5.5 to 6 hours a night.
Yeah.
Like, and then I do it over and over and over again. Right. So to me, it's like, I guess I'm going on a tangent here, but it's a little bit of like, when I hear things like, you just gotta take in all this inspirational information and then like apply it to your life. It's like, I'm an anomaly here, probably. I don't listen to a whole lot of podcasts. Like, I listen to Andrew Huberman, and then I'll listen to like Alpha Motiversity.
I listen to Motiversity for sure.
Like, I'll just listen to like 3-minute clips where it's like just literally the
When I'm
same
working out in my
things I've heard.
basement, it's a bunch of guys yelling at me.
It's just Jocko. Like, that's actually, Jocko's probably the only person I listen to, and it's just like the same clip.
There's like 3 guys on there I don't know, and they yell at me every morning. I don't know who they are.
Anyway, all that to say, I think that's my wrestle with this. It's like, inspiration can be good to a point, but then when it starts to like give you 1,000 ideas of, how can I do a bunch of different things in my life? And it's like, no, just do 5 things. Just do 5 things and do them well.
Well, and most people, and know who you are too, because there are like the generalists and specialists. There's people that are going to do one thing and do it for like, maybe you are the running guy and that's what you do forever. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then there's also the guy who's running 200 businesses, and like, because that's just how he is. Like, what's the guy's name? No, I was just listening to him the other day. Sorry, I'm going to keep moving. Tony Robbins. But like, when you think there's just different
That guy
people,
does so much.
But yeah, he does. And again, I think that the reason I'm framing it that way, Sam, because I want to throw it back to the table, is like, I wonder how often we try to objectify the subjective. Like, so what we do is we say, hey, this is how you should live. I think instead it's, hey, what are your priorities? Why are those your priorities? How can you become the best at that thing? And if you're seeking inspiration that helps you do that, so if you were listening to like a CrossFit podcast on like, this is going to be my goal, or listening to a running podcast if you're going to be a runner, or me, like I used to listen to Jordan Peterson ad nauseum. We should also pray for him because he's really sick right now. But like, I would listen to him because the way he taught, I feel in my life, I'm called to carry a wisdom and teach it. And the way he was doing that, I'm like, I am obsessed with learning this thing. And I again think that you can overdo that. But anyway, I'm going to throw it back to the table. What I think we can get caught up in is, hey, actually right now, this is what I'm called to do, but I want to be in the know of all this stuff so that I can act like I'm doing all this stuff. And it's like, well, no. Do the thing you're called to, set your priorities. And some people have more bandwidth than others. You know, you meet efficient people and you're like, I thought I was efficient until I met an efficient person.
That's actually key. The amount of people I'm friends. I don't know if you guys, I've definitely brought him up to you. Sahil Bloom. Do you know Sahil Bloom?
I don't.
So massive presence. I think he's got one of the best newsletters out there. Highly recommend subscribing to it. But
what's his general topic?
Wealth, productivity.
Yeah, sure.
The things every dude writes on these days. But his book, The 5 Types of Wealth, is a New York Times bestseller. Every year, him and his business partner, Matt Schnook. Matt has a home in Cabo. They invite like their 6 closest business friends.
Yeah.
4 days, mastermind. Great deal. I was privileged enough to be invited in 2024. And that was one of those situations where I went and I was just like, holy crap. I thought I was working hard like these dudes. And that I think is important every few years as a man, or even a few months. If you get to a point where you feel like you know it all or you're at the top of the mountain, Get around guys that make you feel like you're at base camp again, because you'll always find them. It's the key differentiating factor between like you should feel good about yourself and your identity and your worth. But I've had this conversation. It's an interesting one. Like, I think worth and identity are different than value. I think we conflate those two things. I think your value and the value you provide to the world can be different than what your inherent worth is. For instance, a kid who is 30 years old, plays video games in his parents' basement, eats Doritos for lunch, as the saying would go.
Yeah.
I don't think he provides the same value to the world as Noah Gilchrist. The worth is the same.
Thank you.
I know you
Worth is the same, but the value is different. And I think it's important to get around people who challenge your perception and your view. The other thing about this is, like, I do wonder with a lot of people, how many, this is not an ad at you. I
you're
respect
great.
your
Yeah.
life.
No,
I'm sure
please.
your priorities are great. So this is not an ad at you,
Yeah.
but like the other people, right? Like, what percent of people, like, genuinely, what percent of people watching this podcast, if you viewed their life for a week, would you actually be impressed with their priorities?
Yeah, I know. Well, that's where I want to. go.
Or even like what
I
they
feedback
think.
to what
like,
works.
like even like you're into CrossFit, or you guys are all great husbands. Like, most dudes prioritizing their wife, like, do they actually know what it looks like to do that well, or do they know what it looks like to like take care of their body well?
For sure. I think the tricky thing is that, like, we have to, so I think there's just a couple things in my mind here. So one is, like, there's a moving target on what success is. So, right. So, like, I think we sometimes throw the term out of, like, this is like, you said at the beginning, this is not a shot at you either, but it's like, you said this person's a really successful person. Like, you threw out like the beginning of your story of how TR you got started. It's like, I went after these successful people, and it's like, in my mind immediately was like, who is a successful person?
That's a good question.
Is the dad who just works 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, and then provides for his family and is a present dad and teaches his kids to pray, teaches them hard work ethic, and takes care of his body or whatever? Is he a success? In the same way that a guy who's a Fortune 500 CEO is a success, right? I would say that he's more of a success, right? Even just taking like,
Can I pause you? You would say he's more of a success, granted that the CEO is not also doing the same thing.
Yes. Okay. So this is where I was coming with that is, like, we live in an age right now where, like, in recent news, again, another person's fallen by the wayside, that it's like, okay, Coach Mike Vrabel, it's like, he's caught up in scandal right now. And it's like, dude, you have everything that you could ever want. Like, you are the coach of an incredible NFL team.
Story to me.
Yeah, no, seriously. And then you just won a Super Bowl. And then it comes out that you've been fooling around with a girl, not only for this year, but for the last 6 years.
Not to interrupt, but I got the memes of this stuff I shouldn't laugh at. But the funniest one I saw was, like, I think Mike Vrabel got the wrong idea of what cheating meant in New England.
Yeah, that's brutal. There are the people that turn up phrases. No,
I think you got the wrong definition of cheating.
If you're ever the butt of a joke like that, you got to, like, evaluate your life.
So I think that's what it comes down to me is, like,
But do you think, like, here's where, so I love the track you're going down, which is like, how do you define success? And in my thought, it's like the dad, right?
Yeah.
That you mentioned, to him, if that's how he defines success, I would consider him successful.
Yeah.
But is there room for, it's just so tough because we put our own definition of success around everyone else. So, like, for me, I think it's attacking a part of me right now, because I think in the biggest way in everything, be everything, do everything. And then I can put that standard onto other people. Yeah. And so for the dad you mentioned, even though he would consider himself successful, I think because we have our own definitions of success, we put them on each other.
Yeah, and I think it's tricky too, because it's like, I would be very curious so again, no shot at you. I'm just very curious. So I will
debate me.
No, it's the best. No, this is really good.
I'm very curious what your perspective would be if you were in my shoes. So, like, if you had 3 kids and you had a wife, and I'm also not an entrepreneur, so I think this is a part of the conversation.
Were you the dad in that example?
I am the dad in this example.
Yeah.
I'm saying that.
Now he is.
Well, no, I'm saying this right now. I'm saying, like, I would be curious if you put yourself in, like, if you were living my life, how would your framework of success look based on the margins you have, right? So and that was kind of more rhetorical. It's more of just kind of like, I guess it's just a quick rhetorical thing. So, but I think where I'm trying to go with that, though, is I think part of this is part of the success side of this. I think we just talk a lot about people who can make their own schedule, like entrepreneurs. That's not most people. Like, I would say that most of the people that listen to our podcast, or most men that I know at least, are not entrepreneurs. They're not running their own businesses.
Yep.
They're working for somebody, right? So it's like my boss tells me when I need to be at work.
Yeah, totally.
And then it's like, and then outside of that, it's okay, my kids are in these sports, and then we've got these commitments at my church. And it's just like the margins of a man's life begin to shrink and shrink and shrink. So then it's like, okay, if he's not an entrepreneur, what is he supposed to do with his life?
Yeah, can I press? So I want to set the table, because I think, to me, that's entirely dependent on is he living by default or design? Like, is he exactly. For me, it's man, this is really, really good, because I think that I agree with you, Sam. We have to start, but I want to go back to, I think it happens when we objectify the subjective. Like, there's something beautiful about Catholicism, and that a rightly ordered objectivity meets a rightly ordered subjectivity. Yeah. So we know that if we are called to marriage and we're in marriage, our first priority is to our wife, right. Our next priority is to our kids, and then from there, everything else. Mm-hmm. Now, the way that someone is going to evaluate if the priority to their wife is being achieved is going to be different, because every man and wife are different. There are some wives that are going to demand a little bit more time. There's others that are going to demand a little bit more time outside the house, all the things. But that's where we have an objective. The objective is the wife has to be first place, then kids, then everything else. But the way that we define that, that's where we have to live in relationship, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, ask you a question about that.
Please keep going.
The tricky thing we could go
if we get into the only verse, let's keep the present.
But what I will say is, like, so to that example, provision is in serving the top priority and the second priority. For sure. But then if you're saying work's the third priority or fourth priority, it's like, well, technically that might have to be one to serve number one. Yes. I had this conversation with the priest.
It's more like a Russian nesting doll, though. So I think the way that you're laying that out, just for the frame, I think you're laying that out almost like a ladder, like a descending ladder. Mm-hmm. What I'm laying it in is a nesting doll. The innermost doll is actually me and God. Like it's who am I as Brad, and who is the Lord, and how do I become the image of him I'm supposed to be? The doll outside of that is Nina. And Nina and I are now one. Who are we? What are we to become together? The doll outside of that for me in my life right now is Eliza, right? And but
the tough thing about this, I like the framing. But the tough thing about this is, like, so let's say you went all in on a business. You create a business, side business. You're the CEO
totally.
of it. Let's say some of your evenings, because the business is new and early, you had to work 6 to 9.
Yep, time and space.
Most people would say you're not prioritizing your wife, but what if you create endless financial freedom for them? This is not me, by the way.
Most people would, but we would. Like, what I'm thinking is...
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but time and space...
priorities can overlap.
Time and space will limit you. I want to throw it back. Sorry, I'm Dominic. But I think you're pressing into, we're human. So we live in time and space. I can't be everywhere at once. That's a gift. It's a gift, because it means I have to make choices. But for example, like right now, I'm running it really hard. Nina and I, ahead of time, we knew, hey, this month, it's just going to be, I'm running it hard because we're going to launch a lot of things. And this is going to give us more freedom later. However, like, one of her values is time together. So it's like, hey, next month, May, like, we're going to really prioritize. What should we do? How can we get 3 nights? But time and space makes you think that. Now again, for someone, they might say, me and my wife, like, that's going to be a 2-year season and we're good on it. Mm-hmm. Others, it's going to have to be, it's 2 weeks at a time and it's back and forth. All I'm trying to say is, like, let's continue to set the bar high and teach people how to actually prioritize their life. Like, you tell me your priorities.
Yeah, we're talking about 1%.
Is your priorities? Well, no. I want you to keep talking about it, because I think what people are talking about as entrepreneurs, it should at least poke you. I want to be poked. Like when people were talking about, like, Sam, when he was going back to CrossFit, this was like when we were first starting to think about Modern Man. I'm I'm coming off of, like, a lot of steroid use, like a lot of like getting this autoimmune stuff figured out. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah. I was getting so excited. I was getting going. No, but like tons of prednisone, like bloated, not feeling good, like feeling lethargic, embarrassed to get back out and run and lift because I'm not where I was, and like, wow. And I remember Sam like being like, you have a duty to be strong as a man. And it was poking me. I was like, screw you. I do a ton of stuff better than you. It's like, wait, we just lost the frame, because now Sam's saying, hey, you should be strong. What I'm hearing is not, hey, Brad, I want to encourage you to take a next step. I'm hearing, Brad, you're a lazy. Yeah, exactly. And then what I'm saying is, yeah, but I'm like doing this way better than you. And I'm smarter here, and boom.
Yeah, Brad's the follow man.
Because now we're boxing out. Now I'm boxing into my corner. What I want to do, and I think we're trying to do this on the podcast, again, back to the table, but it's, let's get everything out there. Like, what's poking me? Like, what pokes me sometimes is I'm a perfectionist, and I like getting things right before I start. There's a huge benefit to that. I succeed immensely in a lot of things in my life because I do that, and I fail in others because I do that. Someone like Sam, who's maybe a little bit more in tenacity, whereas I'm a little bit more in inventive, like whatever. Like we can do the working genius, we can do whatever. Let's get it all on the table. Like man. Noah and I just got in an argument on a text today because something poked at me. It was like, leave me alone. Like I'm handling it. But what Noah's saying is, no, I want to help fill in this gap. I know this can be a shortcoming of yours. Help me help you. So again, I throw it back, but I really like the tension we're in because I do think we got to wrestle.
Because you said the seasons and chapters thing. Like, have your priorities or has your everyday life schedule changed? Married life or engaged life, married life, kid 1 versus like kid 3.
Yeah, great question.
No, absolutely.
So that's, I think, the key is
question,
what chapter are you in?
Yeah.
And what does success look like? And that's where I'm excited.
No, press into that instead of leaving it.
Like when I'm engaged, when I get married, when I have a kid, sitting down with my wife and having this discussion of like, okay, what does success look like? What does our everyday schedule look like? I think a great question most people fail to ask themselves is like, what does my ideal day look like? What does my average Tuesday look like? What I think though, and this is a hot take, but I'll stand by it as like the only like fully self-funded entrepreneur here, is like entrepreneurship in podcasts, in media gets so glorified because you're just talking about the 1% of people who make millions. It's actually miserable and most people wouldn't want to do it. Like we talk about having freedom of time as like a blessing. It's actually miserable. Maybe that's just a me thing. Why it's miserable, and I love it personally. Well, it's just like there's never any off days ever. Yeah. The amount of nights I work till midnight because I want to, it's like endless. It's so hard to stop. Christmas, Sabbath is the hardest thing as an entrepreneur because you can always go more because you know that if you do more, like you'll make more, you'll be more, you'll have more impact. Like even if you were just playing the impact
even if it was
game,
altruistic.
Yeah,
no, totally.
You could always do more. You could always reach more people. So I actually think that's something that's important because I think a lot of men, they have business ideas or they want to like fully set their schedule. And it's like, I actually, again, might be a hot take. I actually think you might be less present with those around you if you fully owned your own thing. I just could be me and my business, but because you're nonstop, you love the thing generally, you have to make it work. Other people are relying on you. You have to clean up messes. You have to clean up fires. Yeah. That pushes things back.
Yeah.
Let me pull back to seasons. What do you think about seasons? Like what he's saying about seasons?
I love that. And I'm grateful.
Because I think that's where we're missing each other.
Yeah, no, for sure. You're right on. And I'm, like I said, I'm not coming after you. I think it's more.
You can come after me. It'll make it more interesting.
Yeah. I think it's more of because if we're talking about gets poked, I get super allergic to these people who have no, like what I would call substantial responsibility in their life aside from a business, telling people and prescribing how they should live their life.
Yeah.
It's like that to me is asinine. Like that is like you're just a talking head that somehow got a bunch of attention and people prescribe to what you say.
Why does that poke? Can I post
why does that
poke? Is it because I think there's a part of me that's in that with you. Do you think is it because when we put business in the ultimate sense, it's a false hierarchy?
I think it's disordered priorities. So like, I don't think that man was made to make a shit ton of money. I don't. Yeah. And so when we make wealth the ultimate goal, it's like you are missing the entire mark of your life. Your life is not meant to be how much money do I make? It's what is the contribution to my life, right? There's people, I would count Mother Teresa as more successful than any of those idiots that are sitting there with the most successful podcasts out there because she made the greatest impact with her life, right? And so I think that like when I think about most men that I work with, fathers, husbands, men in general, that's just not going to be their life.
Yeah, the average Joe coming home after the 9
and
to 5.
so I think we're doing a massive disservice to men if we're telling them wealth's got to be the most important part of your life because then you can set up everyone else for success. And it's like, actually, I know some men who have food stamps and they have an incredible family. Yeah. And to me, it's like...
I'll push though for the sake of debate.
Sure. Yeah, do it.
I think that is objectively failing your family. If you're on food stamps... I think, at least if you live in America, the opportunity to make something of yourself, to create something, to be something, I think is so endless that if you aren't able to provide a substantial living for your family, I think you're a failure, at least at that season of life. And I'll even say further, if you look into Catholic Church teaching, I think Pope Pius, I think is who it was, look up like the family just wage gap, I think what it is. And it's like basically not discouraging two parties working, the husband and the wife, but it's saying it is ideal that it's one income and that if it is one income, it's the man providing that income. And this priest giving this homily, it was when I lived in Austin at the time, and it was awesome because UT is like, I think, the second most prestigious university. It's probably all these feminists in the congregation. And he's just nailing. He had this line. I may have told you this. I love this line. He said, just because we've strived away from the ideal doesn't mean that we should forget the ideal.
Yeah.
I think as a man, provision and safety are like the two biggest things that we're called to. I think if you're on food stamps, because the stress that causes the wife, it's like, is maybe to you, I don't know who you're talking about, but maybe to you, it's like, oh, marriage is going good. But like the number one reason for divorce in America, it's not infidelity, it's finances. And so like behind closed doors, I think the stress that would cause at least if I was a woman.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a good point. And
I think it's just putting a cap, and this is where I think marrying the right person is important, because they will tell you, hey, you said this was success. You keep pushing past it. Like finding, okay, what does it look like to provide, and what does my wife actually see? Like one of the conversations I've had with my girlfriend is like, what is your dream life?
Yeah.
And she hasn't had a problem because my dream life's, way more and extravagant. But like, what does that look like? And is that something I can provide? Or if not, can we temper expectations? Is this, because I think so many people go into marriage, like, I mean, again, I don't know who you're talking about, but what dude goes up to the woman and is like, hey, we're going to be on food stamps, by the way. And she's like, I'll sign off on that.
Yeah, it's not, and I wouldn't say I wouldn't say that's the ideal. I'm just saying that's a man that came to my mind. That's a real person that I'm like, I would still say that just being around him, I'm like, it's created a dependence on God, which I would say is a holy thing. I mean,
but do you think that's true masculinity, a lack of provision?
I'm not saying that I would say that, I don't think it's like, I don't think there's an absolute there. Like, I don't think that, that being poor is wrong.
But well, I actually think and the thing is, the fact of the matter is food is on the table because he's using food stamps. So I think you're
substituting provision to not actually God, but to the government. Like you are basically saying,
no. But I think that's a false. I think that's false, because the reality is God can provide through. And I'm not, believe me, if you know me, I'm not very big on this.
Yeah.
But I think God can provide sustenance through the government.
Sure, I don't disagree there. I don't disagree there. But in my
I'm
mind,
not trying to die on that hill either.
No.
In my mind, there's a difference though between like mom, dad left, kids, or unexpected pregnancy, or I'm all for government assistance in specific cases. I used to work at a food pantry in middle school, and you'd see these people come through, and it would just reframe your whole week around what. So I'm very proud.
I think
my thing is if you're married.
No, please do.
Yeah, if you're married, I think. If you're married and you're a man, and that's the particular conversation we're having here, I don't know. And again, I don't know who we're talking about or what the full extent of the circumstance is. But if you're married and you're a man, again, I don't know if the guy's like okay with that, if it's just like a week, a month, a season of his life he's trying to push through. Yeah. But I think in general, like provision,
I doubt he's trying to stay there.
Well, I think that's my biggest issue with the Catholic. Well,
it's complacent.
All I'm trying to say here, and I want to bring it back because I think so. I threw the food stamp guy out there as like an example. Yeah, that it was kind of like that's the one person I know. Like, I guess to bring it back to an actual like real example is like, okay, if what we had talked about earlier is God places desires on your hearts, right? This is something that like, hey, I want to make an impact in this way. This is something that I feel like I could give a contribution to the world. If that is something that God has planted in someone's life, but it doesn't result in a super high income, is it still worth doing because of what I would say success would be defined by the glory of God as man fully alive. So that man becoming the man that he was designed to be is better off than him chasing a ton of money.
Through whatever means necessary.
Totally agree.
And so
totally agree.
What I mean by that is like if he is a Catholic school teacher and his wife is a Catholic school nurse or whatever she does, or maybe she stays at home, that's not a ton of money. And then again, Catholics here, and I know there are men that are going to listen to this, that this is probably the reality. NFP,
I probably pissed off a ton of people.
You're totally good. NFP, if you are like living in a life where you're like fertility is not an issue, can be a massive burden on a family's life. Because it's like, if you don't figure out NFP and you don't know how to like actually do it well, some people end up with 6-7 kids. And it's like, I was just trying to be faithful to the church and be faithful to what God said and be open to life. And now I've got 7 mouths to feed and my wife and I are here. And I'm doing this thing that I felt passionate about, but now I don't know what to do with it. Like, again, maybe sounds like an extreme example, but I actually don't think that
exists a ton.
Right? Yeah. So that's the thing that I'm struggling with is like when you have people that are outside the church that maybe not even identify as Christian are giving like prescriptive advice to people with like that have no context for like the development of a whole person. That's what I struggle with.
We
Well, I
need, we
would
need
say-
father in here.
Yeah.
But real quickly, if I can. This is a hot take. I'm throwing out all the hot takes today.
Dude.
But you think through that example you just gave. I think that we're talking about prioritization, right? I think that is a lack of the man putting his wife and his children as their priority. And I think even when you're married, before you have kids, I think you have to prioritize the thought of your future children, that they come into the life in a good circumstance. Not just kid arrives, okay, now they're the priority, like long before they even exist, which is why I have like a stupid amount of money in accounts, 401k accounts. Like I've talked with my financial advisor of like, how can I put up my future family? I have no clue the name of my firstborn son, but he's set up at least to the extent that I can do.
Yeah.
I think so many Catholic men, again, they might have their spiritual lives in check. You sent me a prep question, and it was something about like the modern day Catholic man. I think my biggest issue with the modern day Catholic man is they settle for mediocrity when it comes to responsibility for their life, not just in their job. Because what I would push back on that, so man, Catholic school teacher, he feels like it's his calling.
Yeah.
Can you can you sit in prayer and rationally justify, and you guys are way holier than me, so you tell me, but tell me, okay, your wife's struggling. She now has to work. She doesn't want to work. Kids, their life is struggling. We're not present to them because we're stressed about, is that really
Well, can I say one thing? There's a lot of presumption in that though. So all I would say is, yes, it could be. Because you could have married a woman who knew you were going to be called to work at a Catholic high school and make an impact on a small town. And that was your call. She agreed to it. She was going to work there with you. You guys had a lot of kids. You had to live kind of low on the totem pole financially for a while, but then they were able to get scholarships to college, and you just died in the same home that you raised them in. I totally think that can be a path to success, but you can still attack the principle.
But do you not think that there's again, presumptuous, but the people
No, there's totally
Isn't there a
people
ton
out
of
there that will use that as an so I love what you're saying, because there's a ton of people out there that will use that as an excuse for complacency, and they shouldn't. That is not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But there's a ton of people, to Sam's point, that will use what you're talking about as an excuse for idolatry. So and that's all I'm saying is it's just idolatry happens so easily.
But what I'm saying is I think provision is that biblically, I could pull up verses.
Agreed. But
if I was not an I'd be better reversing. But provision is one of the top qualities of a godly man.
But we have to define provision. So provision is financial. Provision is also access to God. So my ability. But
can't you have both?
You totally can.
But that's what I'm saying. I think most people don't have both.
I agree. Sorry. I don't think that we're actually disagreeing there. I'm just saying.
The dad with 7 kids whose wife has to work in kids, they got to go to Goodwill to buy their clothes. He's not providing.
But there's a lot of get to. Let me pull out the rest of that frame just real quick. I think because complacency leads to idleness. I think idle speed is a real problem where we just settle and we just default through our lives. I also think idle worship is a huge problem where we make the main thing not the main thing. And all I'm trying to say in this is I totally think that you could pursue a life where you make a lot of money and still be totally devoted to the Lord and totally provisional for your family. All I'm saying is you could choose another route where you literally say, I could make a lot more money and I won't because I know I'm called to this thing. That will result in some difficulties, but maybe you were made for those difficulties. That's all I would say.
My dad's actually a really good example because he was offered massive jobs back in the day.
Yeah.
Basically gave it all up to do ministry type jobs his entire life. So he's a good example of that. I would even say to him, present day, if I was across from coffee, I think there were, and I would be loose with this because I benefited from him so much. But I think there's an argument, and I think if he was humble in the conversation, he would accept it. I think there's an argument that he actually failed as a father in ways by his lack of provision, in ways that the financial stress or tightness affected his kids.
I totally disagree.
I think I disagree too.
Yeah,
but again, I would have to bring it into nuance because I'm going to fail as a father in 1,000 ways.
But provision is a top.
So hold on. I want to give so much provision that we never even have to think about these types of things.
Yep.
And at the same time, again, we know the statistic. If you make $30,000 in the US, you are in the 1% of wealth in the world. So we just have an insane, it's all about frame. We have an insane, frame around what we think it takes to be able to have a successful, provided for family. Like if my kids I want my kids to have to buy clothes at Goodwill just because it's a good financial decision. One, because you can actually find great stuff. And
I hate
you
Goodwill.
Can actually,
I'm a Goodwill hater. I hate
that's an
Goodwill.
attack on Goodwill. But that's what I'm saying is I'm like,
this is good.
eBay's fine. Goodwill sucks.
you can make a certain level of money. And again, what you're attacking, it should be attacked. And it's this. Everyone's supposed to send it. And there are people who are not sending it. And
Excuses,
I think
complacency,
and
all
I think
that.
part of what you're saying too.
But who wants their kids to
additionally,
live a mediocre
hold on.
life?
Part of what I
just
think
have to define mediocre.
Yeah, exactly. So part of what I
Goodwill.
think you're saying is
We have to press
that
deeper into that.
I agree with two things you're saying. One is that there are guys who aren't sending it; they're living in complacency. The second thing you're saying is there's these willy-nilly guys who are following their passions and screwing their family because of it. So they're like, my passion is to be and I'm just throwing this out
whatever
there,
the thing is.
youth minister or do art because I really want or sing
coach,
because
so I'm sitting as an assistant
because
coach and I'm not making it. Yeah.
And I think the guys that do that there are a lot of them that are acting in a selfish way. I totally agree. So I think
But
we
what
agree
would you
on
say
that.
if they said it was like they're calling from God?
So then I would have to believe them, and I do believe that, and I think that we really
It
have
would be
to,
evidenced
we
by
really
the
have
fruit,
to-
though.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
going to
And
say
I
the
think-
same thing. So-
and-
anyway, sorry.
Well, no, and I just think we really have to understand that you don't need to have an insane house. You don't need
Which
to
I
like
don't
my
disagree
family
with, by the way. But that, again, going back to church teaching,
Yeah.
read that encyclical from the Pope. I think there is something to be said for, as a man, providing.
Agreed.
And
I don't disagree.
And giving your wife the ability to stay at home if she wants, as
I don't
well
disagree.
as when your kids come along, that they don't have to question certain financial.
I agree with
not
that, but
bad,
the only
yeah.
provision thing that I would push in on in this, like
By the way,
I think
I'm the only one not married here, so I have no grounds to speak.
I
here.
actually,
I'm sure my
I
thoughts
actually
will
think
develop on this.
No, I think we need to do a part 2 because I think what I'm really leaning in on here is that like provision. We just have to define our terms. So provision, part of provision is material provision. It's a house over your head. It's clothes on your body. Part of provision is access to education, access
Wouldn't
to
the food
potential.
stamps argument completely rebuke everything you just said?
No, not necessarily.
Why?
Because so
Hard
again,
times
like
fall, yeah.
because materially, like what is required materially versus what would be ideal materially is a different question.
Yeah.
But I
So,
think
like,
that's
when you
different
look at the time-
individually versus, again, with the man, you are
I don't
entrusted
think-
certain people in your life.
I agree, but you can be entrusted with certain people in your life that you're called to take through the desert. Like it's not necessarily that in my life I am going to build the promised land before I welcome people into
And
it.
there's a
And all
degree
I
of
would say is
control.
you could be on the path to it. So that's where I think it is nuanced, but I would want to argue it out because I think
You also only can control certain things. That's like, again,
Yes.
I'm bringing it back to the NFP thing. Like, I know this from experience. Not all of my kids were planned. Like,
Yeah.
you can't just you can't manipulate every variable and then bring your
But the
it's not plug and play.
modern world
Optimize,
says
optimize,
but the
yeah.
modern world says you can.
Yeah,
Exactly.
optimize, optimize.
The modern
What
world
I'm
says
saying
you are
is,
the
like,
arbiter.
So, for instance, I could lose everything tomorrow, be on food stamps. You guys could laugh at me. Like, there's a
wouldn't laugh at you.
scenario.
Yeah.
There's a scenario. I know you wouldn't because you're pro food stamps for a man who's trying to provide. But like, again, I think there are situations. My thing and why I'm pushing back so hard is
I
because
want you to keep doing that.
That should be like the 0.00001% of people. I think you guys are talking about it in a way. Oh, I totally think so. I think you have failed as a
But
man.
let's
if you're
not.
a fan
But
of that
don't.
topic.
But can I just? You don't explain the principle from the extreme anecdote though. The principle has to be that a man is responsible for the provision of his family to provide. We then have to define what that is and what that means, and we cannot purely define that off a Western world lens in the
Yes.
third millennium. And that's all I would say.
Would you be comfortable with your family on food stamps?
No.
But why?
No. Keep
You're
pressing.
assuming that
Can we-
person's comfortable.
No,
though.
can we
That
play-
is the other piece that they're like, we love food stamps.
No, I don't think he's
But
presuming.
that's my
Press
point,
in, press
is
in.
that because it's not again, ditch everyone in this theoretical family aside. I'm having a conversation
press.
to the man, right?
Yeah, press in on me. So I said no.
Huber.
I said no. The reason I said no is because where I'm at in my life, the provision that I can provide for my family is more than that. So
But
I
do
know.
you feel like
I know.
it's your duty to provide the level of provision that you're
No,
providing?
I feel that it is my duty to provide provision for my family.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is, with where
How did you come to the number
Like
or the
Pope
degree?
Pius
of
X
sorry, let me-
would have you understand. You were saying Pope Pius X. I think he would be. I think if he came and sat down in this room right now, he would be like, "Oh frick, that I think he would see a lot of things where he's like, "Oh, I wasn't even taught. Like, I was thinking like a roof over your head and like making sure, because again, wealth
No,
right now
but real
is
quick,
insane.
he said stuff about the ability for one income within a family.
Totally.
Income, the dollar has lost so much value. You
Yeah.
objectively have to make a certain amount to provide for your family.
Yes, 100%.
Let me pull
Yeah,
it
go
back.
ahead.
I just want to keep answering the question. So like for me, I answered no, I wouldn't be comfortable, because where I'm at, if I was providing in that way for my family, I would be either complacent, lazy, or both. And that's not because of the opportunities I'm being afforded right now. If I was living where I'm from, like, and even like parts of my family, like without the education that I have, without the opportunities, like would I encourage them to get out and try to expand those? Of course. What I'm saying is, if where they're at right now is where they're at, though, what I would say is find God in that and get better tomorrow at providing in the ways that you're being called to.
I don't disagree.
So again, that's all I'm working from is, I think you're trying to say, stop being complacent and stop living your life by default. I completely agree.
Yes.
What I'm trying to say is, if where you're at right now is not where you want to be, don't necessarily presume that the best solution to that is total rewiring tomorrow. It might be saying, what am I providing right now, and how do I get better tomorrow? How do I
isn't
take
that
the next
rewiring?
step? I think it is, but again, I'm wanting to safeguard what I'm trying to push. What I'm trying to push for the middle on with you and me right now is, you're saying get up and do something, and I'm saying, yeah, get up and do something, but also take care of what you already have.
But I never said don't do that.
And nor did I say the opposite.
I was just saying I don't think it's acceptable for a man
Yeah.
in modern day American history. I know people who have come from some of the
that's what
worst
you said.
communities
No, that's
in
what
America.
you said. Yeah.
I mean, I know a guy who came from like one of the sketchiest neighborhoods in Houston, gang fights, multi-millionaire now. David Goggins, another great example.
Yeah.
There's no excuse as a man in modern American day history.
That's where I think we.
I'm gonna pause you.
I think that's where we disagree.
I think this. So we all know very well a man who
I love just these anonymous names thrown out today.
because I'm never going to say that.
Yeah.
No, but it's like,
We all know a man who is, his story goes something like
He's unbelievably successful.
He had kids way earlier than he expected. He had more kids than he expected way earlier than he expected. He was trying to figure life out. He was a really hard worker. He had a season where he was on food stamps with his wife and some kids. I'm trying to keep it very general. And this man, though, really believed in building his own business. And so he allowed for that time to exist with a plan in severe discomfort. I'm sure, and I don't know, but I'm sure his wife was super stressed.
did they not have any outside support?
You would be blown. You would be blown away when I tell you this is off camera. This person, he was essentially on food stamps for a period of time with a plan, grinded.
But you guys
for a
totally
long
left
time.
that out when you said the plan. When you said the food stamps thing, you did not add the greater context.
No, but that's what matters, because you can't.
But I said
blanket
that.
say- but you're saying, would you be comfortable? Literally, what you said was, Brad, would you be comfortable with food stamps? Food stamps are bad. You literally said food stamps equals. You said food stamps equals not providing. And what I'm saying to you is that you can have a situation where unexpected things come out, but what you need to do and make sure you're doing in your life is full sending it. And being somebody who's not just willy-nilly with their passion, but being committed to
I don't
what
think
God's
we're
called you to do.
disagreeing. I don't think we're disagreeing that if you were on it
that
forever.
person ended up being wildly successful.
Wildly, yeah.
Like, will blow your mind how close you are to that person's wealth. But I'm just saying, like, they wildly successful.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah,
their
but again,
family's
I
doing
think
amazing
the
because of it.
context that was missing was had a plan. Because again,
Context matters in all this. That's why I'm saying you can't
What percent
say-
of people who are on food stamps actually have a plan to get off?
Well,
of it?
exactly, but that's the point I'm saying is you didn't provide context when you said that food stamps are bad.
I will stand by the statement. I mean, here's what I'll say. Even in that scenario, I think he was failing his family at that time. He may have gotten out of it and then started providing. Well, you can disagree with me.
We disagree.
I think that is
Yeah,
where
I
the
love
disagreement is, because I think that I agree with you that if you did that forever and just settled with, I guess these are my cards, I think that that's an absolutely.
How many examples of that exist where guys think they are about to have the next $1 million business? They sacrifice their family's
great.
food because they want to do it. So their family's on food stamps.
But you're going to have discomfort.
No, that's a good hypothetical.
You are going to have discomfort when you're trying to do an amazing thing. So
there's always the stories of the guy who did that. But again, vast majority of people on food stamps are men who are like,
I will say there's also just a massive problem with financial literacy in the world right now. So like,
sure.
Man, if you're listening and you're on food stamps, let's go to Financial Peace University.
Also,
learn about Dave Ramsey, the debt snowball, start working on it.
We did a total rabbit hole with this. I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. We're going to do a part 2. We're going to do another one with your brother, which will be even more psychotic because you guys are both psychos. And it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I know you have to run, so
let me challenge real quick just to end it. Like, I think that like where this can land is in your life as a man, you're called to provide. You're called to provide in every season of your life. You're called to provide for those around you. What we mean by provision, we really need to detail, and then you need to know yourself. And are you being complacent, lazy, and living by default? Or are you being motivated, driven, and living by design? And then once we map that out, we can begin looking at like, where are you at in that process? And can you effectively look yourself in the mirror and go, I know I'm getting after it? Or when you look yourself in the mirror, do you avoid eye contact because you're not excited about where you're at? I think we can have a lot of conversation around that, but I think that's where I landed.
100%.
I love it.
Real quickly, 20 seconds.
Dude, last word.
Real quickly.
Yeah, get that thing.
We just keep talking.
Yeah.
So give me here.
I think it's just a moth.
Celebrity.
Food stamps.
They're coming after me. What was I going to say to what you said? Okay, the last point I would just make is I don't know. There's no men that I respect, and I respect you guys. So I hope you guys don't go back on that. No. Is that would be okay and feel like they're a good provider if they offset their provision to someone else.
Yeah, noted. I think that's fair.
And that is what you are doing when you're on food stamps.
Part 2. Part 2's coming.
Yeah.
Part 2's coming in hot.
Okay, thank you guys.
Okay.
Oh, dude,
Dom,
thank you.
Real quick.
The big elephant in the room, the massive elephant. I mean, I'm not married. You guys are way more. So my opinions on this could totally change.
I love the heat you're coming in with.
Oh,
I love it.
It's a great conversation.
What do you want? What do you want? Like, people come check you out. What's going on? Share how to get to you.
Just
It's the weirdest way to say
just
that.
look up the running effect on anything.
Dope.
You'll find me.
That's great, man.
Awesome.
So grateful for the time.
Anything else you want to share? Not your opinions, but like any other ways to.
Any specific group chats you want to have one last say on?
I mean, final word today is I don't know why. I think it's almost as crazy an argument as you were making with the food stamp thing. Why you would make someone a GOAT who doesn't have a winning record in a championship series.
At LeBron.
I'll allow that to be the last word.
Cut. No, thank you guys for tuning in. This is awesome. I'm pumped, Dom, to get back on this with you because it's going to be a wild ride.
It's hilarious.
Thank you guys for tuning in. And that's a wrap.
See you
Until next time.
Peace.
You guys are crazy.
You.
I'm going to go do research on the way home.